Here we are inside Wembley Stadium, which this May will be hosting the Champions League final. And what are the odds of Celtic or Juventus being here for the big game? Well, Juventus, the Italian champions, of course, haven't been to a final in 10 years, but they topped their group this season ahead of Shakhtar Donetsk and Chelsea. Celtic, though, the runaway SPL leaders, have already shown against Barcelona at Parkhead that they're more than capable of a big European upset. Well, Carlo, Garganese and Paul Macdonald are now joining me, James Richardson, to talk about Celtic Juventus. Here's a tweet to start us off from Piara Power, who asks, how frightened will Juventus be of the mighty Hoops?
I don't think they'll be frightened at all. Aside from Barcelona, Juventus can compete with any team in the Champions League. They've got world-class players throughout their team. They've got the second best midfield in Europe with Marchisio, Vidal and Pirlo. They'll respect Celtic, they won't take them lightly, but they won't be frightened of them.
Would you go along with that estimation of Juve's second best midfield in Europe?
I don't want to touch that one, but I think any team that turns up at Parkhead is intimidated by the 60,000 spectators there. I think the teams such as AC Milan and of course Barcelona this season have come into that cauldron and have been left stunned by the noise and fervent support from the home fans. Yes, Celtic don't have a team to match Juventus on the pitch, but to quote a cliche, the crowd can be the 12th man for them.
Well, indeed, incredible support in the game against Barcelona. Juve with one or two weapons as well, and you mentioned the midfield, of course, Andrea Pirlo, the player that everybody always focuses on. How can Celtic shut him down, is the question that Alan Turner was asking you.
I think the two key elements for Celtic will be Scott Brown and Victor Wanyama in the central midfield. They need to close down Pirlo deep in his own territory and make sure he can't create for Juventus.
I think it's a very difficult tactical decision that Neil Lennon has to make with Pirlo, because the best way to stop Pirlo is you have to press him as a team, not just one or two players. The whole midfield will have to hunt him down as a pack. The forwards, Hooper, Samaras, they'll have to shut off the supply line from a Leo Bonucci in defence, stop Pirlo from getting the ball. But if you do that, then you leave space open for Juventus's many other world-class players, the likes of Vidal, Marchisio, the wing-backs Asamoah and Lichtsteiner, who are very aggressive on the flanks. And so it's a difficult one, whereas if you hold back and play the game plan that Celtic used against Barcelona, then you risk doing what England did at Euro 2012, which is basically let Pirlo dictate the entire game. So it's very difficult what Lennon's going to have to do. All
right, one or two selection questions for Juventus. Nicholas Anelka, who was the player that the latest big forward to come in, Nicholas Bentner, of course, back in the summer. Do you think he's going to have more of a role for Juventus than Bentner has done so far?
It's difficult to say. I mean, Anelka's coming from China. His record in China wasn't good. He scored 3 goals in 22 games. He did play in midfield for part of that spell, but he's hardly going to fill Juventus supporters with lots of confidence. So it's a tricky one. Juventus's one big weakness is undoubtedly their attack. Mirko Vucinic on his day can destroy any defence, but he's inconsistent and he's been struggling with fitness problems for the last couple of months.
Right. The other problem they have right now, of course, and it looks like he'll still be out for the first leg at least, is Giorgio Chiellini, who's been immense for Juve and Italy of late. They've really been feeling his absence. They had a rotten start to the new year without him. Do Celtic have the kind of weapons that can really exploit his absence?
Well, of course, if you believe the reports in the papers, Juventus were interested in signing Gary Hooper in the January transfer window. The player has been in prolific form in the Premier League, but this is a completely different level of football. He is unlikely to have played against a defence as tactically disciplined as Juventus before, and he could be found wanting if he hasn't given support from midfield.
All right then. So, big question then, who's going through?
I think Celtic will make it supremely difficult for Juventus, but the Italians will make it through the tie.
I think you have to go with Juventus. I don't think Celtic will be a walkover, but Juventus are going to go through.
All right. Well, you can see the action coming up this Tuesday, and of course you can follow all the latest developments right here at goal.com. If you have any other questions, by the way, for our experts, just use the hashtag AskGoal.